that the new parking we built along Railroad between Second and Park is going to be the new RTD parking. And all we've got to do is put up a few signs. We already have a bus stop there, so we're working on that one, and we've cleared that with RTD. Boulder County is currently out to bid for the new concrete pad, or getting prices at least on the new concrete pad out at the wastewater treatment plant for the recycling center. Depending on whether it comes in over or under their procurement amount is how they'll decide to proceed next. They have the design done, they've got the ramps all ordered, and they can get it in very quickly, so it's just a matter of that. We do have a plan B that if for some reason they can't get the pad done, we can move the recycling center over there without it temporarily. So, and there was one more, wasn't there, you were asking about?
EcoCycle skate park.
Oh, the skate park. That's under construction with Bone Park Phase 2, so it should be done, you know, along with the rest of the project sometime August, May, or August, September.
Right, it's more about the existing above
Features.
skate park features.
Okay.
And essentially, I'm glad there's an update on each individual item. So thank you for coming prepared with that. I appreciate it. I think it's really important at this point, as the library starts to move forward, that there's a lot of communication between the library and town staff, so that when the library starts, basically can map out a timeline for access to the site. And that way there's no interruption of service when avoidable. For example, it would be great to just have a date when the RTD park and ride just gets moved, and just find out what's the date for them, and just make sure it's done. I do think it would be good to have a shelter for that, since it would be a park and ride, if it's possible to do that. Same thing with the EcoCycle, communicating with them, finding out what some of their drop dead dates are, and so they can work in collaboration with town staff, so it's not, so no one's kind of surprised by anything. And that's really what I would add.
The current time frame would be, in discussions, it sounds like, with Parks and Public Works, is that the library is planning to start demo midsummer.
Okay.
So we would want to remove the current skate park by that date.
I think Dave was believing that we'd let them just demo the thing. It has no value to us at all.
Right.
And then the new skate plaza is scheduled to be done in September. So it sounds like it may be the prime skateboard time, but mid-July to mid-September.
Right.
It will be closed.
So let's just clear some of those finer points up with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're at kind of 30,000 feet with some of these items anymore. I think we need to get just kind of fine grain.
Yeah, I'm working with their engineers literally
great.
every week, so I'll mention those things to them and make sure they have that incorporated.
Thank you.
All right, anything else or any other questions for Chad? All right, we'll go and move on to audience business. This is the portion of the meeting where the audience is welcome to address the board on items of interest that are not on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. We do not currently have any public hearings scheduled for this evening, so any topic is welcome. Each person will be allowed 4 minutes. Please come forward at this point and give your name and address for the record.
Can you go to the front?
I have my director. Hi, my name is Benita Yoder. I'm the owner of 401 2nd Avenue here in Lyons. I was in town this past few days and I wanted to come down here while I was here and just pop in, because I understand there's been some conversations about if there'd be any way the BOT could be helpful or possibly waive performance bond to have an elevation project proceed and that kind of thing. And I really appreciate your time and energy on this matter at the meetings. I've also met with Richard and the project manager, Philip Storm, last week at the end of the week, and I met with Richard this afternoon. My understanding is this project is basically dead as designed under this $25,000 design, which is what these pages are. And I've been of the opinion. If it's dying, if it's dead, let's not drag it out. I want to know where I stand on it and not take, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to learn that it's not going anywhere because of a lack of contractors bidding and wanting to deal with bureaucracy and FEMA 179-page proposal, etc. Oh, I met with Richard this afternoon, as I said, and he was just showing me a letter that was prepared to give me official notice that the project is terminated as per this design. Then my request then was to have the $21,875 that I deposited refunded, which under this contract that I signed last October, also signed by a town administrator and attorney, the town has up to 30 days to refund that. I would ask that it be done sooner rather than later, so I could put the money to use. I just spent an hour, I just came from an hour and a half meeting with an area realtor, and I'm leaning at this moment in time, this is not a commitment, but towards doing some work on the house as is, because my understanding from meeting with the flood recovery manager and project manager, both of whose time I appreciate the time and effort that they've put into this over the months. I know they've got a number of other things going. But my understanding is that I could go through a rebid for putting dirt in the basement, flood vents, and moving the permits and stuff, and still be back in the same position in a few months of not having a contractor bid on it, which is, kind of hard for me to understand how somebody would bid for a $150,000 project, put dirt in the basement and whatnot. But I did go over in Confluence today and looked at some places that, like Nancy Art's place and et cetera, where that was done. But at this time, my understanding is if I terminate, or that since the town is terminating this project, that there's still an opening to do a redesign for a fill in the dirt project if I choose to go that way, but there's no guarantee that I'd be in any better position down the road than I am. Anyway, just wanted to pop in while I was in town and say thank you for attempts to get this going, and of course I would still love to have the house elevated if there were a way to do that feasibly, financially. At this point, since it's terminated, I just ask that the money for the refund be processed quickly, or, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Anita, I just want to say thank you for being here. And this is painful for us too.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because a few years ago, hindsight's always better. Had I known that this was going to play out this way, of course I would have done some things different, but a few years ago I did put in an application for a permit for a hot water heater and furnace, and then I remember Rosie telling me that if I got the permit, I would be ineligible for the grant, and recommending that I withdraw it rather than go through with it. So I took that approach, and at any rate, I was on both the 404 and this track, and I never wanted to do the 404 track, and that's closed anyway, but it's decision time, because I have a house in Lawrence that I put stuff in storage to get it painted and stuff to put in the market to sell. Move out here now, I'm just kind of re-looking at my life and in light of these decisions, so or how it's played out. But
well, we're truly sorry that it has been so difficult for you. I think I can speak for the board to say if the staff have, if there's anything that the board can do to be helpful, certainly I think the refund should be straightforward enough. But we'd still be interested in looking at all avenues to try to make this feasible. It sounds like it's going to be a starting from scratch kind of.
It does. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of back at the beginning. If there is any way to, I mean, obviously it's preference would be to have the house elevated. I cannot get an insurance quote at present on the house being in the floodway, which it apparently will be after the Boulder County remapping changes go. Right now it's in the floodplain. Because my church agent says he can only quote it based on what it's in right now. So talking to people in the conference this morning, I heard that it could make as much difference as $36 versus $400 if it's eligible for NFIP. But on the other hand, NFIP insurance wouldn't have done me any good anyway, because the house, it doesn't cover the under basement stuff, and someone over there had NFIP, paid for 20 years, didn't get any contents coverage, didn't get anything for their basement because there's exclusions. All they got was $10,000 for new furnace. So it's not what it's reported to be when you've got a house, when you've got a basement under level. But I know more about this than I care to. Let's just put it that way.
Watch when you turn there.
All right. And thank you again. I have heard through the grapevine that you all were looking at ways, and if you still have any ideas and ways, I would certainly appreciate that, and I do appreciate your interest and involvement, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for audience
Yeah,
business?
just the cord. Anyone else for audience?
Okay, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Would the clerk please read the items on the consent agenda into the record, please?
There should be a liquor.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the liquor license. Getting ahead of myself. Is there a motion to recess as the Board of Trustees and open as the Lyons Liquor Licensing Authority?
I move that we recess as the Lyons Board of Trustees and open as the Lyons Liquor Licensing Authority.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the votes. And passes 6-0. Will the clerk please introduce the item?
On February 22nd, got this one here, it says you say the city clerk instead of town clerk, just made me laugh, never mind. Received this application from the Lyons Arts and Humanities for a special events liquor permit to be held here at the Chamber Room and adjacent outdoor courtyard for the following dates: April 6th, July 14th, and October 6th. The Lyons Arts and Humanities has indicated that security is not necessary for alcohol consumption, will only be a small part of these events, and is requesting that the licensing authority waive security requirement as they have done in the past. The event location was posted on the 6th, and the clerk's office has not received any objections to this special event permit to this date.
Are there any questions about the application? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the Lyons Arts and Humanities Commission application for special event permits based on the findings set forth in the staff report.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for votes. And it passes 6-0. While we are the Lyons Liquor Licensing Authority, I think we brought this up once before earlier in the term about allowing the staff to approve these administratively. In my 6 years on the board, I don't think we've ever denied one. And I know at the time when we first discussed this, the staff was going through some change in terms of building a better process to make sure that these had a good process for review. I don't know if that's something at this point this board would want to reconsider, allowing these to be done administratively versus and only seeing new licenses. So I thought I'd throw that out there and see if anybody has any objection to asking staff to, sorry.
Just to be, no, sorry to interrupt, I think just to be clear, you would come to the liquor licensing authority should there be, we always get told there's no comments for or against, so it would still come to the licensing authority if there were comments against, would be my understanding.
Yes.
Sure, they could always opt to bring one to us if it was something that felt they needed direction on, but I think in lieu of an actual action, we could ask for staff to just give us a summary of licenses approved during staff report. I think it'd also be nice to get an update of what licenses were renewed. So maybe a licensing report every few meetings or once a quarter or something to just say here's the status of the licenses that we've issued and renewed in town, or if anybody's lapsed. marijuana licenses or liquor licenses that are not in good standing. I feel like we could still maintain some oversight that way without necessarily taking action on things that really could be done administratively. So if, I don't know if we need a formal resolution to come before this.
I gotta
body
look
for
into that. Lots of communities I work with do it via ordinance. I just have to check. It's been a
Okay.
while since I've looked at that, and it would be just for special events.
Just the special.
Yeah,
permits.
yeah, because you would still need the needs and desires and everything for
Sure.
new licenses. So, yeah, we'll bring to you whatever you need to have done to, if it's a resolution or
Okay,
an ordinance.
I'm kind of not seeing any objection to, it's a nice little parting gift to the next board. All right, is there a motion to adjourn as the Lyons Liquor Licensing Committee and return as the BOT?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. And that passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to the consent agenda. Would the clerk please read the items into the record, please?
Resolution 2018-34, a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Greystone Technology Group Incorporated for information technology support services for the town of Lyons. First reading of ordinance 1032, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 1-4-20 of the Lyons Municipal Code related to general penalty for violation. First reading of ordinance 1033, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 2-6-270 of the Lyons Municipal Code related to penalties for non-civil traffic offenses. First reading for ordinance 1034, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 1-4-30 of the Lyons Municipal Code related to application of penalties to juveniles. First reading of ordinance 1035, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending section 1-4-50 of the Lyons Municipal Code related to municipal court costs. First reading of ordinance 1036, an ordinance rezoning certain property of the town of Lyons from low-density residential R1 to medium-high residential zone R2A, and this is 109 Park Street. Resolution 2018-32, a resolution approving the second amendment to the covenant agreement and respecting the Bradford homestead and use of Lot 1. Resolution 2018-7, a resolution approving amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County and Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Resolution 2018-33, a resolution approving the reimbursement letter agreement with Highland Dish for the St. Vrain Regional Trail Expansion Project. March 2018 accounts payable, February 20th, 2018 Board of Trustees meeting minutes, and the March 5th, 2018 Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. Would anyone like to pull any items from consent? I would like to pull items number 7 and 9, please. All right, is there a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
I move we approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, call for the vote. And they will pass 6-0. Thank you. All right, on to general business. I'd like to invite Gary Sansify to come forward from the county.
You can sit over here, Gary, if you want, if that's more comfortable. Or you can stand.
It's all good. I'll sit. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. My name's Gary Sanfasad. I'm with the Boulder County Commissioner's Office, and I'm here tonight to give you an update about the proposed shooting range at the CMEX quarry. But first I want to just step back a bit and give you just a general overview of what this project is part of a larger effort. It's not just in isolation. The county's been involved for the past 5 years in a partnership called the Northern Front Range Recreational Sport Shooting Management Partnership. It's composed of 4 counties: Boulder, Clear Creek, Gilpin, and Larimer County, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the U.S. Forest Service. They've been meeting for 5 years, as I said, to address the issue of increased conflicts with recreational sport shooting and other recreational users and homeowners. And in the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest. Basically, that partnership has kind of developed a three-pronged approach to this issue. First is that the Arapahoe National Forest would initiate analysis on how to provide safe, sustainable recreational sports shooting opportunities while also providing for health and safety for recreationists and residents. And this is basically entails amending the forest plan, because currently the forest plan does not have direction on recreational sports shooting, to provide a clear management direction. The second prong of the approach is each county would develop a shooting range or ranges, depending on what's needed. And then third is provide education and outreach. We've developed brochures, a website, videos on how to safely and respectfully shoot in the forest. I should say that we've made some progress. 5 years is a long time, and still a long time to go, but as you know, these things are complicated. But the Forest Service is close to releasing a decision that would possibly identify areas that are suitable and not suitable for shooting, sport shooting in the forest. However, it should be clear that any closures that they do decide to impose would be contingent on a given county creating opportunities for folks who have been displaced by those closures, such as a developed shooting range. It sounds like that process might take for the rest of this year. It's something when they put out the decision, there's appeal periods, etc. Then they respond, and they can have another appeal period. So again, not moving lightning speed, but making progress. If anyone's interested in the Sport Shooting Partnership, they should go to the website. It's called sportshootingpartners.org. You can find out about the whole 5-year process as well as sign up for email updates. So now I just want to share with you kind of what Boulder County's progress has been to date over this 5 years in terms of our component of looking at developing a shooting range or ranges. We've spent the last 5 years reviewing dozens and dozens and dozens of possible sites in the mountains and in the foothills and in the plains. Right now, we're currently working on two sites, exploring two sites. One is with the Boulder Rifle Club. It's their current site, which is over there on 36, just outside Boulder. And that's, we're working with them to expand their current range and make it more accessible to the public. We just partnered with them in applying for engineering grant from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. The other site is, as what many of you already know, is the Lyons CMEX quarry site.
Will you speak louder?
She's gonna close the window.
Sure. So last year, the county and the CMEX folks took the Board of Trustees for a tour of the site. And we also provided opportunities to travel around different parts of the community while someone was shooting a pistol and a rifle in the quarry to understand what kind of the sound impact was. I would say we're still very much in the early stages of determining whether a shooting range is even feasible at the quarry. You have a law enforcement entity who's interested in constructing the range there and managing it. However, they are working with some engineering firms to determine whether it's even feasible, what kind of size ranges would be possible there. So that's going on. What else is going on, obviously, is we're in conversations with the owner of the quarry, CMEX. They have seemed interested, and however, unfortunately, the new plant manager has come on board, so we're kind of starting over from scratch here to get that person up to speed on what we're proposing. They've also informed us that given that they're a global company, that things move slowly there. This is not a big top priority for them. So, but we do feel like there's interest, so we're continue to moving down that path, understanding what they need, what the reclamation process would be, requirements from the state, etc., and what kind of negotiated agreement would be. So again, very early stages. The other piece is access. We haven't even begun to communicate or negotiate with the owners of the access because we feel it's too premature, given that we don't have these other elements really dialed in yet. So there's some questions about what kind of range are we talking about. It will be, if it is constructed, it'll be an outdoor range. That is the plan. We'd like to see a 25-yard, 50-yard, 100-yard opportunities if the site allows for this. Again, we don't know that, if it can allow, contain a 100-yard range. So given that we're still in this very early stage, we don't know how many firing lanes will be provided for each of those different lengths. There was conversation about what type of bullets would be used and allowed. No decision has been made about that yet either. This is really early on in this process. And I should say that this has a lot of hoops to go through, not only to get to a negotiated agreement, but then has to go through the county's special use review process, which includes hearings before the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. So throughout those hearings, there'll be plenty of opportunities for members of the public, members of the town of Lyons community to ask questions, to make comments, etc. And so we're committed, the county's committed to keeping Lyons informed of this progress. Happy to come back when there is some more tangible information, but I thought it was important to just give you an update. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Not really a question, but I guess a comment. We've had a lot of people email us from town and give us their comments. And I'm thinking we should just be encouraging them or maybe replying to them to submit those to the county site as well if they haven't done so, or could we do that on their behalf? Or it's probably better for them too, but.
Well, I think I also, I think that it sounds to me like you had about 5 sites originally. So have you removed the other sites that you were looking at in the county from the discussion?
So we did have sites that were identified up on the Peak to Peak Highway. Those sites haven't been formally removed, but we're not moving forward with them at this time. These 2 sites seem more viable, more ready to move forward. Much for those other ones. Those are all in Forest Service lands, which require a pretty lengthy swap process.
Because I'm, just where we have been has really been, I would describe more in kind of listening mode, but my understanding was this hasn't been cited yet for Lyons. And that, one of the things we wanted to do too was to hear from our citizens about how they felt about this concept. So it was introduced early so that we could also do some listening of our own just throughout the community. I guess I want to say, as far as the due diligence process to go to for viability, I would like to suggest that Lyons process be part of that, so that we have something kind of a pre-siting process for our citizens versus only the feasibility of the site. Because I think once it gets cited, it's really hard for our citizens to feel like they're gonna have much control if it's a county-driven process only. I think I would like to we've always kind of been, our position has been we're open to learning more about it, but I think, we are getting a lot of questions that we can't answer. And I think that there have been a lot of, there's a lot of interest in what further study would be done. I think the kind of very, I don't know what the sound was. The sound test was a kind of a rough, but certainly not a formal, a good indication of what a multiple lane site might generate in terms of noise, especially if it's an outdoor. I think some very legitimate concerns around impacts have been had. So I think we need more information, I guess, to be able to share with people about what is being proposed. But I also think, to me, there's a huge land use issue here that we have to work through, because this isn't in our primary planning area. you know, I still think we have to figure out, you know, we want to be good regional partners, but also this has to make sense for Lyons first. And so I think we're trying to get to that kind of question, is this something that is something we would, that our citizens would support? So I think we need a process, an earlier process, to have some formal discussion for people to at least have a way to communicate with us. And I think they can send comments to the county currently as well. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. But I think that the understanding we've had has been that this would only move forward with our support. And so we don't really know yet what our status, our stand is on this as a board. We haven't taken any formal position on it. And I don't think we can until we have some sort of more rigorous process for us to evaluate the land use impacts particularly, because we're giving up a lot of opportunity in our planning area. We've put a lot of time and energy and community effort into talking about what uses we would want in our planning area. And you know, right now the public hasn't had any chance to really weigh in. So I feel like we owe that to our citizens before we would give any indication that we're supportive of the project. So I don't know how you see that fitting into this process. If you have any suggestions for how we might go about that.
Well, it's a good point. It's hard for the county as well, because we don't, again, know if this is even viable.
Right.
First of all, even if we could even put a range in there, would that work? Second of all, does the owner have, you know, conditions that we could even live with? Would it be feasible to even purchase it? So there's so many ifs and what ifs so far that we, but I think we're fine with participating with Lyons and engaging the community about what are their concerns and, you know, what they would like to see answered, questions answered. But I think it also has to go through a process, because, for instance, what you said about the sound test is totally accurate. It was just an informal test. But I think the law enforcement group who was conducting it would say is, we didn't even have the sound mitigation features in there, so how could you even do that? So it would be good to know what it is the town of Lyons residents' concerns are. I don't know if we can answer them all until we go through a process. We go down the road on some of this, but we're happy to engage.
Well, I guess the question is that if we go through some sort of exercise locally and it's clear the community isn't supportive, I mean, how much effort would you continue to put in to this site, knowing Lyons couldn't be supportive of the project?
Well, I think that's why it would be really important for us to have a conversation with the community, because as what I tried to outline in the beginning, this has a huge impact throughout the whole county. If a significant amount of Forest Service lands are closed to recreational sports shooting, that's outside of Lyons as well, that will have a huge impact in people recreating more safely in our forests. So it's not, you know, it's part of a bigger picture. So that's why we're also excited about the Boulder Rifle Club. So it's not just about Lyons bearing the burden for the whole county. There are hopefully a couple of viable sites.
Sure, I guess, and I'll just have one more comment. I mean, I think what we would like to see though is, I think it's going to take some selling. I mean, if it's something you really think you want to move forward with, and I think in terms of just the sheer number of people that have the potential to be impacted by that location compared to maybe other locations that are less, this is right on our border, and we're about to hopefully build a lot of affordable housing right on the other side. And I get there's some geographical constraints. And I want to say, in fairness, we've heard some support for this as well. It's not all been opposition. But it's hard to gauge without a formal process where the majority of people lie. I mean, the people who are passionate about it on the extremes have communicated to some degree, who are paying the most attention. But we have not had invited the public to come forward and be part of anything formally yet. So
perhaps we should have a joint
that's
workshop
kind of what I'm saying
around
is let's
inviting the community.
Bring everybody up to speed on all the details. I mean, I think we've all been kind of saying, look, it's really early. We don't really have a lot of information yet. But clearly, you've done a lot to get to this point, and so even that information could be helpful for people. But I think, just our job is to represent Lyons, and so in fairness to doing that, I think right now, we're evaluating what are the risks for our community versus the benefits. And, so we have to see how the community is looking at that as well. So Mayor Pro Tem have a call.
Thank you. Thanks for coming up. We appreciate it very much. I guess first, I was going to ask you about maps and stuff like that, but I really, quite frankly, find it concerning that it wasn't that long ago where the presentation started with, look, we want Lyons to be a partner in this, and this was presented as a collaborative effort. And that if it was basically said if Lyons doesn't want this, we won't do it. And now the mayor just asked a fairly direct question about reiterating that and didn't get a straight answer. So I find that really concerning, that it sounds as if you're hedging on that commitment. So is that commitment still a commitment from the county that Lyons essentially has a say in this, that's not just we'll collaborate with you, but an actual ability to vote up or down on this at certain points, whether it's early on the process or at certain points before the process gets too far down the road where it turns into Lyons is fighting against something as opposed to collaborating with the county.
No, my understanding of how this has progressed and hasn't changed, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that, is the county approached Lyons very early on to get your involvement, to get your blessing. If you're not, this is not something you support, I don't believe the county will move forward.
Thanks.
But I'm the project manager. I'm not the county commissioners on this. I want to just give you that caveat.
No, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And I think the last time representative was here from the county, who was also just in the commissioner's office, not an elected official. One of the last things that we discussed was, one, it was made very clear, and I feel like the town of Lyons board, staff, and the county representative all were on the same page that no one had agreed to this yet. That just because a sound test occurred and some conversations had happened, it wasn't as if the town was saying, okay, sounds good, let's talk later, show us what you got. That it was basically still considered very, very early on in the process, and I've heard you reiterate that too. What the other thing we did ask for was for the Boulder County to bring us a process. And before the process even starts, beyond this point, but to come to us and say, this is how the county envisions this process going. It sounds as if there's been some discussion of what few things that need to be inserted in there. I like your suggestion of there being some sort of community engagement where the county speaks to Lyons residents and gets their feedback and input. But also, we asked that where does Lyons legislatively, for lack of a better term, fit into that process? And I think that our residents, and I also feel like this board and the next board will feel much more comfortable knowing if there's some, where does the rubber meet the road, in a sense, in this process for the town board to make some decisions. And I don't think it should just be one spot. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in the future. I think that really needs to happen before much more happens or anything else happens moving forward. And like the mayor said, we want to be good partners, and I think we rely on each other to be that, and I feel as if the town has definitely been a good partner with the county in this case. And from my perspective, I'm waiting to see back from the county essentially mapping that process out. I understand from your perspective, you might not have a process yet because you don't even know if it's feasible, but I still think there can be some broad strokes for that as well that can also help to at least give some ideas of not only when is there resident input, because I think the mayor's right, there's been some general support for the idea of getting people out of the forest shooting, but there's also been concerns expressed. So I think what I'm saying is really pretty clear. right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think we have been kind of at the place where we feel it's so early, it's even hard to even present anything. But I'm hearing you loud and clear, is that you would like the county to engage with the citizens of Lyons, understand where Lyons Town Board fits in this process in terms of decision-making.
That sounds right.
I'm happy to do that.
I just have a couple comments. When we were out doing the sound test, there was some very sort of definitive information that we were given, such as green bullets being used and NASA technology to turn sound into heat and that sort of thing. I'm wondering what happened to that and why there's no real decisions being made. Like, I mean, I understand that you're still very early on the process, but when the citizens come to us concerned about what's going to happen there, and we have this information that we were told, and we tell them this stuff, then you're saying, come back and say, oh, well, sorry, that's, you know, not necessarily what the deal is. It's a little bit disconcerting. I don't really know how we're supposed to sort of deal with the public on this issue because it's very controversial right now, and what are we supposed to say to them? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, can I address your first 2 points
Sure.
you made about the green bullets and the sound mitigation? So the green bullets, you were right. The law enforcement entity that's interested in building this has brought up the idea of green bullets and only allowing green bullets at the site and providing sales of those green bullets on the site. What we heard from some of the folks in Lyons, actually, shooters, was that they like to make their own bullets, and that this might be a deterrent for people to even use the facility, which in some ways would defeat the whole purpose of building the facility if we're not going to help the folks who are getting displaced from the Forest Service closures. So we're trying to say, is there a way to do both? Is there options? There's lead remediation program, all kinds of factors in that we haven't even begun to get to because, again, first of all, we don't even know you can fit a range in there feasibly, and whether the owner wants to cooperate. So that's the kind of information I would happily share with the public, that I'd like to know their opinion on it. And that's what came out of the last time we were here at an update, was folks from your community saying, we don't think green bullets exclusively is viable. It would eliminate some of us from even participating. The sound mitigation, yes, that is that NASA type sound mitigation material is something that these folks who are interested in building this want to employ. But again, it's so early on, I don't even know how that would be employed, or there's no plan for that yet. But yes, that is something that is desirable. It's something the county thinks is very important, is making sure that people aren't negatively impacted by this as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I also highly encourage you to reach out to the public and create some sort of forum for the public to become educated in what you are actually proposing. I also think would be important for you to conduct some sort of sound test for the whole town to participate in if they'd like, whether it's shooting off certain guns at, these times in the quarry, just so they have some idea of whether or not it's even, something they need to worry about. I personally didn't hear anything except for at the high school, and that was very, very minimal. But me telling them that is one thing, them hearing it for themselves is something else.
No,
So,
I think it's a great idea. And I've talked to CMEX about that. As you know, there's some hurdles to get people on their private property, mining area. But if there were maybe there's representatives from the town, like you all, a handful of people would come. I'm happy to work that out. But I would like to suggest, if it's possible, to do a joint kind of community meeting. So it's not just Boulder County coming in and saying, we're coming in and doing this. Because I want it to be as much about listening and learning as what informing people where we're at. So is that something possible?
I think what we're trying to say is, one, I think, to me, it doesn't seem right to just say to everybody, go talk to the county. I mean, I think what we want to be is to be their representatives on the issue, and have it be like any other land use issue we would make on behalf of the town. That we would be considering this as if it was our own proposal and vote on that, like we would anything, and treat it with that same sort of rigor in terms of the community engagement and the amount of information that the citizens would need to be able to make a good decision on that. Technically, I realize it's a Boulder County proposal. It's technically in the county, but to me, it's a little bit in the gray area. I mean, if you read our IGA, the spirit of an IGA is that basically this is an area that was identified as Lyons growth area that we have planned. We have put plans and time into planning what should go here. And I mean, my initial reaction is a little disconcerting to have the county be proposing a really intense use like this in our planning area. It's unconventional, but I also realize it's a big issue. And I think that was why we're open to talking about it, because I think we also realize that there is a bigger problem that we're all trying to be good partners to help solve. But we're still balancing a lot of these concerns locally. And so I do think, and to what the Mayor Pro Tem kind of was more direct about, was saying, we need to know that we have that ability to represent our citizens in this decision. And that if we say the citizens have told us, and our view on this is that this is not a good thing for Lyons, understanding that this is a bigger issue that we all need to work on, I hope the county will respect that. And, we're willing to do the work and to put, the time in and do some engagement. I think there's a lot for all of us to learn. I mean, admittedly, it's not something personally I know a lot about. So I think education is going to be really key to any success. The question is just at when's the right time for that? And I guess our concern was feeling like maybe that time is earlier than we originally thought. Maybe it's not smart to get too far down the road and have things worked out and then come and say, oh, by the way, are you guys good with this? So I think we're asking to maybe change the process a little bit, engage earlier rather than later. It might be a good idea for everyone. So I think that's essentially what I'm hearing the board say. And there's lots of opinions on this out there, and there's a wide range. So I think we just need to do the work and see where we end up.
I agree. Waiting for the special use review application is way too late.
I agree.
It's way too down the road.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the more specifics will come out in part of the process, where you will be able to make a much more informed decision as a board. But yeah, let's set something up. Let's get something on the books to jointly listen and educate and update.
Okay.
So I'll come back with a process and also clarity from the commissioners about where they stand in terms of the IGA.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is an update concerning the Van Court property.
This will be a pretty short update. I talked with the appraiser today and inquired about why we haven't seen the appraisal. We expected it a couple of weeks ago. He said that it has been more complicated and more difficult than anticipated to get to go through the most recent sales in the area and determining if there is an increased value by being in the town. And he did say that he understands its priority and he will do his best to get it to us by the end of this week. In the meantime, the most recent purchase agreement proposal that you sent to Mr. Van Court He did say that as written, he wouldn't be able to accept it, but let's wait and see what the appraisal says and we can talk.
Okay, any questions? All right, next item is discussion direction to staff concerning the workshop item. So can we take the Botanic Garden proposal first?
Sure.
General thoughts from the board on the location, the proposal itself, supported, questions, concerns? Trustee Miller?
Well, my main concern is that I know that there's other folks in town who are wanting to do something similar, and I just want them to be able to perhaps either be part of this one or do something similar themselves on another piece of land. But otherwise, I think it's great.
It seems, this has been a vision for many people in town for quite a while, so, and I know that folks have been looking to site their botanical gardens for quite a while. I think it's much easier to site this than it is to site a shooting range. I think makes a lot of sense. There's community benefit, and this is a group who've been working on this for quite some time, and it seems to match precisely a lot of the goals that the town had when deciding to engage in the buyout program. I know this is so. I love the idea. I think that there's some details to work out, and I would not count myself as necessarily an expert on these gardens, so that's not the type of details I want to comment on. It sounds to me like two things that really came out of the workshop were parking and budget were two big items that came out of the workshop that clearly just need to be addressed. And I don't think this precludes anyone else from bringing forward a proposal to the town and saying, hey, here's this other property that's not being leased, and can we do something there? And I don't think that stops anybody, and I think that this really shows that the town board is serious when it comes to that this is about community benefit and that this land belongs to everybody. And as long as it's low impact on people who live in the neighborhood, and it's a good use of public land, I think we should get behind it. I share your desire to allow other people who maybe have similar ideas to come forward. I think that no one should feel as if they can't. But it would be great to move forward with something, for sure.
Great.
Anybody else? Anything else to add?
I'd like to say, I was impressed by the thought that has been put into the plan and the level of detail they've gotten to the point that they have so far in presenting to the town. So I think in effect, it could be somewhat of a model for those first steps if someone else did want to do something, because it's a reasonably thorough concept and well described. They did look at virtually everything that they really needed to look at. There are still some detailed questions that need to be worked out, but they're relatively circumscribed and appropriate to have at the end of the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, there's one thing I forgot to mention, since it was in workshop when I mentioned it, and we're on the record now. Just the other point that I think would be important is to look at whatever trees that they would like to take out, that there's some real, it's not just looking at the tree itself, and I understand native, non-native, and some trees maybe should not have been planted in the first place in our town, and that's fair. However, there may be some sentimental or historic value behind them, even if it's not officially historic value. And I really think it's very important that that we don't take down a tree before we really know it's going to be okay to take down a tree. And respecting the fact that this space was people's homes for quite some time, and just remembering that.
Trustee Karavis?
I'll agree with my colleagues. I've always liked botanical gardens when I travel, going to them. And I became aware of it early on as moving here. I agree with the questions. We need to work out the budget issues, make sure everything's there. I know the ecology board has talked about increasing bird watching, bringing groups to town. I know this board's talked about shoulder season things and having those kind of different areas of the mountain state, of this state in that area. Could foster some of that too. So I see potential for some of the goals the board set 2 years ago slowly coming more fruition with a project like this.
I also have a lot of support for this project. I'm really excited to see it this far along, and I can't wait to see it happen. I know there's a lot of citizen support for it too. Just to reiterate what we talked about in the workshop on the parking piece is to have our current parking study consultant just take a look at it if there's time for that in their work. And then I think two other things we had questions about were insurance. So I would definitely like the town's perspective on can we carry them under our insurance policy. And the other one was the water tap, and I think we all supported their use of the tap, and then the stipulation was that they were gonna pay for the water at the, what do you call it, town rate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just to mention those other items that we've talked about.
Yeah, I was gonna just ask to quantify what that really means. What is the rate they would pay?
Well, it would be the rate that we charge ourselves for park watering, because we still, it's the amount that Longmont charges us per gallon without the overhead of the system development charges.
So, and then it'd be good to get some idea of how much water we're talking.
Sure.
Just to have an idea. I agree. I was the liaison with the ecology board my first 2 terms, and this reminds me of the clarifier and the type of project that it is. And I love that it's community driven. It's coming up, you know, from citizens who really have a passion for something that they can bring to the town. And she's been looking for a location since I started. And, you know, this is one of those things that, you know, the flood has been so hard for so many people. And if there's something like this that can come out of one of these sites, I think it's a great thing to put on the property. I think maybe with the trees, maybe that's an opportunity to memorialize some of the people who live there. You know, to do something in their honor. You know, I think there's some opportunities for that could help smooth that over if that is an issue. I just think, yeah, that, you know, not to repeat what everybody said, but I think we need to give them some good, hard deadlines for when we need budget numbers and things like that. So I just think we need to know, you know, we need to partner with them and make sure we're all realistic with the timeframes too for if the town is responsible for building a fence and things like that. When could we really get around to getting some of those things accomplished? But overall, I think you've got good, solid support for it. So,
how would you like to see the next step?
I'm sorry?
The next step. Would you like the staff to continue to work with them on those items and bring back just a check-in with you? I mean, if they would like to start.
Seems like we should see a formal plan. A full plan.
With the budget and timeline.
Items,
Okay.
maybe timelines, you know, a little more maybe a public presentation for what the plan is and
okay.
Parking solutions. All right. Do you need more direction on the other items, transportation topics?
No. I believe we have that. We'll be having a workshop again in a couple weeks.
And Dr. Cog is this week, so I may learn some new things there. All right. We had 2 items pulled from consent. The first one was number 7, Resolution 2018-32. I just wanted to walk through a couple questions I had about the agreement. This is the agreement with the Carrolls. Just a couple of questions. I had a question about the fence that's referenced regarding if the skatable plaza on Exhibit C were to be constructed. So we're talking about, that's if a different skate park or a larger one than what we're currently planning on building. Can you just talk about what kind of fence and gate you're thinking and how that would look?
This would be, since it's not in a floodplain, it would be a fence probably similar to what's around the current skate park. One that would prevent people from climbing over the fence and using it in, at times not allowed. It's really more of a liability protection type of fence than it is any, decorative or anything.
I'm curious, are there requirements specific to skate parks that require fencing?
I would need to check with our insurance company. I mean, currently, they always go out and check the skate park every visit they make. I think it's considered a higher liability for the town. We could check on that, Deb, with the insurance company.
Because I guess I assumed that the fence we have now was more because of the location being near a road and keep kids from going out on their skateboards out of, for their safety.
Yes.
Not necessarily to prevent access.
The skatable plaza that's being built this summer will not have a fence around it. It's built to kind of go with the topography and be open like that. The fence was also a request from the neighbors as in part of our discussions with them.
Yeah, I guess in the park, I just try to envision the chain link fence in the park. And is it really, was it for safety reasons, or is it, I mean, we already have access hours for the parks, and so was there some reason why we needed to fence this in that location? It seems
if you wanna,
a little bit.
Sure. Are you willing to take input from
Sure.
the Carrolls?
So they're dawn to dusk.
If you'd like to. Sure.
Yeah, the agreement is dawn to dusk.
So that's one means to
with
enforce
us.
that.
My name is Kathy Carroll, 330 Bradford Street. We're the party to this agreement. The reason that we asked for that fence to be built is because it is very close to our home, and we do not want it to be accessible to be used after hours for any kind of hanging out or partying, noise making, etc.
And I'll just note, park operating hours are, is it 5 a.m. to
10 p.m.
per your code? This agreement says dawn to dusk, so that varies with season, obviously, and time, and it doesn't particularly jive with park operating hours, but that is what, as Ms. Carroll said, was requested for those reasons.
The park host would lock it after dusk.
Yeah, I honestly don't have any problem shortening the hours and saying the skate park could close earlier. I guess
But how do you close it if there's not a fence?
well, I think it's enforced like anything else. I mean, if there's people hanging out there and they shouldn't be, you call and we have people who check it out and enforce our code. It feels a little kind of like assuming that we're gonna have problems there with the kids who use the skate park. And I don't know that that's completely fair. I don't know, we should assume there's a problem that we require a fence unless we know we have that issue. So I would rather see it left open and try to manage it like we manage access to the parks every other way. I am sensitive to the fact that it's close to your home.
Unless it's an insurance requirement.
Unless it's a safety requirement that's required by regulations, then that's a different story, obviously. But.
With all due respect, Mayor, this skate park is outside of our original agreement, and we will remove it from this agreement if you do not build the fence.
Okay.
It is a deal breaker.
Well, I think that's a risk we take. I understand that it's important to you.
Also, it's not currently going to be built.
Well, that's the other thing. I think we're arguing about something that has about a 2% chance of actually happening. So But I also think that, you know, I don't know that, I think the need is maybe is great. I think there are other amenities out there that we already have, a bike jump park and other amenities that are not fenced, and we don't cut off access to those. So I think singling this out for some kind of special need to lock it up implies problems with teenagers or people who like to use skate parks that may or may not really exist. So it just stood out to me.
Okay.
I had a question about whose property are the new berms in the landscaping constructed on?
Town property.
It is on town property? 100%?
100%.
Okay. It wasn't clear to me, and we didn't have a map that showed those lines.
Lot 1.
All right. I think those were my two main questions. I don't know if anybody else had any questions about the agreement.
My question's for Ms. Carroll. If the proposed skate park, which if it were ever to come to fruition in the future, is there a size that's smaller than 12,000 square feet where you would agree that a fence isn't necessary?
I can't speak for my husband in that regard, and this is a partnership between the two of us. What I can tell you is that we've been in negotiation with the town over many years, over many amenities within the park, and we're always open to what the needs of the community are and to what is reasonable. So I wouldn't shut down the conversation today over it.
Thank you.
Staff, any other comments or suggestions?
No, not other than the Carrolls have worked with us on many, many occasions where we thought we were at impasses, and we've managed to get to this point with what we all felt was livable. And again, we did discuss the skate park and the likelihood right now that that would be occurring in the near future, and but we can't write off the fact that it's on the plan and it could. So we worked on language that was acceptable based on the fact that it could be there. So you know, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, if that's worth a deal breaker or not at this point, but both the Parks and Public Works Director and myself are at a point where we're happy with the agreement and can support it, and both attorneys can too.
I would just say, I live next to the elementary school, which often becomes a night hangout. So I definitely hear what you're saying about that, although it's fenced, but I think you can just get in the back fence whenever you want, honestly. So, you know, I recognize it as an issue that there probably will be kids hanging out there and elsewhere driving us both crazy. So maybe there's something that we can talk to the sheriff's department about, just monitoring those areas, you know, on top of the streets when they're out and about, just keeping an eye on that behavior in general around town.
Mm-hmm. This would be it's specified also that it's unlit, the skate park, so it would be in a very dark area out there.
I guess I just have a question about whether it would be possible to, in this section, you know, I know you've spent a lot of time on this already, but you know, I don't know if you'd be willing to consider some wording that's a little bit less prescriptive about the fence, and just consider something, or the skate park in general, even in terms of the size of it and the location of it, and just, could we be more general to say, if we ever did decide to pursue a larger skate park according to the plan, that we would come back and negotiate specifics at that time, rather than trying to say today, this is what we would have to do. It's kind of maybe the kick the can down the road somewhat approach.
Yeah, I think that we're a little bit beyond that with the amount of time and money and effort that we've spent in getting to this point, I think that would be very difficult to
Okay.
change. But I really need to point out that every time we've been asked by the town to, kind of amend things or consider changes. I mean, if you look at the park, the park plan, there isn't a single amenity that was placed on that plan that we rejected. I mean, every single thing that the community put in there, we worked through. I mean, so I think we've demonstrated that we're amenable to and reasonable.
And I would completely agree with that. I mean, I think you've always been very, very open to working with the town, and you've made a lot of concessions for the town.
And for the community. I mean,
Sure.
We want this too. We want the park to be built. I don't hate skaters. I don't distrust young people. I like them. But it is good and dark out there. And once there's a lot more people moving into the park, I think it's a reasonable expectation to have it closed off so that folks aren't in there using it at night.
And, I respect that that's your position. I would just, I would say I disagree with you on this one. I just think in that particular location, a chain link fence such as that would really be out of place. I think there might be other ways, more community-friendly ways to police the area to make sure we don't have issues. Maybe, maybe not.
Come to us with it.
Sure.
If you've got a great idea, we didn't say it needs to be a chain link fence, but something that keeps access from the park itself.
Yeah, who knows?
And maybe
what
it's
options
15
there
years
might
from
be.
now and we're old and deaf and we can't hear it anymore.
Well, you're right, it doesn't say a chain link fence, but it's hard to envision what
I
other
think
kinds
that's
of
what we
fences could
envisioned,
be, could accomplish what is intended here, which is to really make the area inaccessible
After
after
dark.
hours. Is it, should it be a deal breaker? I don't believe that it should be. But I also feel like this is a group of people who don't have someone really speaking for them often. I mean, these are kids and young adults sometimes that aren't necessarily here to represent themselves.
And I'm
So-
serious, Connie, I like skaters, I do. I mean, I don't presume that they are harmful, but it is a dark place deep into the park, and older people skate too.
Sure.
It's just a
It's not
precaution
just
for us. It
the
is
kids, for sure.
absolutely not against young people for us at all.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and let the board offer a motion on the agreements as it stands.
I move that we approve Resolution 2018-32.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make
Go ahead.
I agree with the mayor's concerns about this. However, that being said, I'm going to vote for this because I feel as if there's times to die on a hill and there's times not to die on a hill. So, this is a hill I'm not going to die on. And I just think it's just one of those compromises that you make. And I sincerely hope that, one, we get a great skate park at some point in the future. I won't use it, but but that there's also some alternative ways that are able to maintain the integrity of the dusk till dawn hours of it. And we may not know what that solution is now, but maybe we will in the future. So that's my hope, but that's why I'm going to vote for it despite my reservations.
I was
Trustee
gonna-
Jarvis, yeah.
The fence issue doesn't concern me as much as it does with you. Chain link, I wasn't picturing initially a chain link fence. Chain links can be dipped in materials like the green, the black, the brown, whatever. There's vertical fences, there's all kinds of modern fences going on. when that time comes, build it. If we build it anytime soon, I think it's pretty much easy. We can work around a fence, and fences can also be blocked by plantings also. So.
Anybody else? I think all good points. I definitely agree. And I want to say I am so appreciative of how cooperative you and Jim both have been in all these processes over the years on the board. You know, I get it. You can put a more attractive fence potentially in. I guess I struggle with the assumption. That's really what it is for me. It's the assumption we're making that there's going to be problems. And I don't know that we should go into things assuming the worst. You know, I struggle with this. I want to vote for it because I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. But I also feel like sometimes you know, I feel like this is, I'm struggling with that, you know. So I'm not going to change the outcome of this but I'm going to at least vote my conscience. So I'm not going to vote for it. But I do agree that I think at some point down the road, if we build a grand skate park, you know, someone will maybe think that the need for that, or come up with a good creative way that it doesn't say to people, we're worried about, you know, what you might do if you hang out here after dark. And hopefully people won't. So anyway, I'll call for the vote. All right, it passes 5-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are to item number 9 on the consent agenda. I just wanted to ask for a little bit more staff.
Just,
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. You're on the ditch agreement? Yep. Okay, just flip to that. So go ahead.
Just, if I'm reading this right, basically, we're paying $5,000 to go have a meeting with the ditch company. No? Help me understand.
Let me elaborate.
This is the rest, please. The way the memo is written, or the way it's worded, it's, if you would like to have a meeting with us, you can pay us $5,000.
Well, a ditch crossing agreement will be required. We will, you know, the town's plans are to go over the property owned by the ditch company. And so they want to review the plans and have engineering and legal review, and their standard operating procedure for this is, you want to cross our property, we need review, we want money from you to cover our costs in obtaining that review. That's what this is. This is no different than anything, from what I understand and what Marcus in our office understands from talking to people who have done a lot more of these, is that this is
Standard.
yeah.
They told us the same thing. This is the first step in their process to moving forward with our trail going through this area. And the first step is it's $2,500 per crossing. And she said that's a standard. There's 2 crossings. And I did share with them, I was concerned the way it was written because it says just 5,000. And it's actually their policy, well, according to what they say, their policy is $2,500 per crossing. So it's similar to our land application fee that we require developers to put down to cover their costs when they're going to review a project. So I sent this to Marcus for review, and he's the one who reviewed this and recommended signing it. I told her I wish she would have presented this to us months ago as their first step in discussing this. I do believe the cost will be able to be reimbursed through the grant, since it's a requirement to be able to move our trail across there.
That was my other
We will
question. Is this
try.
grant funds then eligible?
We will certainly submit it as part of the grant. I can't guarantee they're gonna cover it, but I'm assuming they will since it's a requirement.
Do we know how much more it could end up being? And it does say in here that it's really
I
not
don't think that's
guaranteed to
working.
be limited to $5,000.
Passing back up
Yeah.
infectual mic. We don't know what the cost is going to end up being. There is some accountability in this agreement in that there's documentation that is required, and the town has the right to dispute such fees in good faith. But it's really going to be dependent. Well, I think they do say one set of construction plans and the reasonable negotiation of the crossing agreement. But if there's a material change to the plans or any kind of additional, the town requests additional rights in the ditches property, there will be additional fees incurred. So have a really good certain set the first time fee. I know changes happen anyway, but that's, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. It does cover more, it's not just have a meeting though, it is to
Okay,
cover fees.
I wanted to make sure we were actually getting the crossing, because the way, it was just a little odd, the way it was.
It is, we agree
That
with you.
we were paying the $5,000 and now they'll meet with us about maybe giving us a crossing. So I just want to make sure
Yeah.
this actually does cover the
Yeah.
cost of crossings.
Well, it will up to up to that amount.
Right. but
If it
it's
costs more for them legally or for engineering, they're going to charge that back to us. The best comparison I had was our land use application fee.
Right, a consultant reimbursement
Yeah.
fee, similar, and they're just saying they won't guarantee that they'll approve proposed
Because
construction.
they can't, until they
Yeah,
review
until they
the
review it.
drawings.
Mayor Preston?
Yeah, thank you. I know we're not privy to their process, however, is there some obligation in this where they are essentially saying they are open to this? That they want to be able to come to an agreement that allows the trail to go over by accepting the $5,000? Or are they permitted to just reject the trail based on how they feel about it? Or must it be a technical reason that they're allowed to reject the trail?
I don't see in this agreement any criteria by which, you know, they will reject A, B, or C. That's what I'm hearing you say, but they won't even review the plans. I mean, it's sort of in the middle between what the mayor said and what.
You know, this came to us late, what day was it, Friday?
Last week, yeah.
The Jill Beatty walked it in, she's the office administrator, is that her title? Of the Highland Ditch Company. She's been at all of our FEMA reviews, I worked with her on the Clomar. She said to me, we want to work with you on this, we know it's important you get this trail constructed, this is the first step in the process.
Okay.
So she did verbalize that to me.
Go ahead.
So just my follow-up to that would be, I think it would be very important for town representatives through this process to gauge that.
Yeah.
That understanding that before coming to the board, or when coming to the board, saying this is what.
Working in good faith toward this, yes.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know that we aren't privy, I mean, we certainly can ask them.
What their standards
What
are.
is the process moving forward? Because I just received this and it was Marcus's name, I didn't know if he had that at the time. So we should probably ask them for that.
Yeah, I think we should. To my knowledge, he does not. So I think that
Okay.
would be a good step so that we stay informed and on top of what the review process is along the way.
Yeah.
You have another?
Well, just should that be included in our resolution? Or is that simply direction to staff to bring back concerns to the board before making the $5,000 payment? After reviewing their process, you know, the staff no longer supports the payment? I don't know if that can just be part of our conversation.
I mean, I think direction meets the goals here is, you know.
I mean, basically, my concerns are satisfied with the explanation. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't paying $5,000 and not really moving. We're not guaranteed we're just gonna get to sit down and talk about it.
No, we have
So,
indication
okay.
it will be more than that, and, you know,
So,
I think they're gonna want some terms for
Sure.
what's gonna happen
Sure,
with
they're
the
gonna want
town's
safety
trail.
and
They're gonna want
liability.
to control this too.
Yeah.
What it looks like at the end of the day.
well, that's been our experience. So.
I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of, I mean, I think staff direction is fine in terms of, you know, if you want to add something to the resolution, you can, because it is simply.
I wouldn't object if you came back and said, well, you know, we have further concerns. We haven't cut the check. We have further concerns.
Well, how about, before we sign this, we do check it a little further, ask for that process. We could enter into one at 2,500, see what it entails, but time is of the essence. The grant on this trail runs out at the end of this year.
I'm satisfied
Yeah.
with moving forward. and knowing that staff
If
will
there's a-
feel obligated to hand over a check should staff review, decide that maybe it's not the right idea.
Sure, if it's gonna be $50,000 for each crossing, it may not be worth it. Sure,
Or if there's too much of an arbitrary nature.
sure. I understand.
I guess the other thing that it does imply is it's a little bit open-ended in terms of what our total cost is gonna be. So I think that's kind of what you're getting at here, is that there's really no not to exceed. I guess we're approving $5,000
Yeah.
at this point. And
Right.
it's telling us it could be more, but we don't know yet. So, all right, I'm okay if someone wants to offer a motion to approve resolution 2018-33.
I move we approve resolution 2018-33.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, call for the vote. And it passes 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, we are at trustee reports, and it is not 8:45. Where are you going, Chris? No. All right.
Sure, do something else, please.
Trustee Miller, do you have any updates?
Not any updates. We have our next meeting on next Tuesday. We changed the time and date. Tuesday, from Monday at 12:30 to 2, to Tuesday from 4 to 5:30. So that has been changed semi-permanently to see how it goes.
Is that starting next week? Could you have a?
Yes, next week.
Great.
That's it. That's all I have.
The PCDC is meeting as we speak, unless they've already adjourned. And among the topics they are dealing with is the tiny homes on wheels.
So Sustainability and Futures, or Sustainable Futures Commission, excuse me. One, there's some discussion of, this has come up a couple times, of showing the average utility usage on the utility bill as a way in which to help educate people about how are they doing compared to other folks in town who have a house of similar size, who live in the same neighborhood. Not really sure what the technology is going to allow, and how much staff time would have to be dedicated towards it. So but looking at that as we get new meters put in, this could just be a really great way actually to reduce consumption. If people were to see that they're above average for other folks who have a home of similar size. Or knowing they're on target and continuing with their conservation efforts. So that's just part of the conversation. It's just so you know it's out there, and that's the purpose of it. Spring Cleanup Day is Saturday, May 19th. And the community yard sale will be a week earlier on May 12th. And the goal is to avoid Mother's Day. And so that's why it's being split this way. This is just a really huge event for diversion. It started off as cleanup, and now it's really changed its focus to diverting as much from the landfill. With that in mind, we're likely to see some rates change, particularly for just dumping into landfill dumpsters. With the goal of diverting rubbish from the landfill and having it be composted or recycled in some way, really part of that needs to be the price of going to the landfill needs to be a little higher. So don't be surprised if you see some rates, and if you get questions about that, direct them towards staff, but know that that's where that's coming from. Then also, I was looking at the Chamber's page, and they actually advertise this as as a community event. Spring Cleanup Day and Community Garage Sale is on their page, but if someone could reach out to them from staff and just give them the most updated information, perhaps talk to Toby and then find out what should be shared. It would be great if they updated their website as well. It was great to see that they had this on there. To single hauler, the timeline is to send out the what is being referred to as the RFI or RFP, depending upon the best way to put it together, going out in May and having it back in June and something before the board in June for the next step in the conversation. It's not necessarily going to be approval or not of a contract. It's more about, here's the next, this is the information we've gathered. And that's it from SFC. The library, one, if you hadn't heard, they closed on their financing, so that's just fantastic news. And which prompted why I was just asking staff today to just make sure that everyone's collaborating, that's all, and it sounds like they are. And I'll be meeting with them tomorrow night.
Not much. College board meets Wednesday.
Could you ask for an update on whether they've met the watershed board?
I can.
I don't have anything either. The Tourism Marketing Grant Committee, I don't think met last week, so we'll be meeting Thursday. And EDC is meeting on Thursday, April 12th.
Yeah, I've had an easy couple weeks. My meetings all are this week and next, so I don't have much to report. Yeah, I don't have anything. Great, thank you.
Action items.
Sorry?
Action items.
Oh, we have enough time for action items? We have a list.
My computer went down and mine were all highlighted. You have some?
I didn't even highlight mine because we never get to it. I didn't highlight them, they're going along.
That's all right,
I can probably do it.
That's all right.
That's bad, huh?
We are going to follow up on the TIP and Pell action items for a workshop. We are, gosh, I had a whole bunch highlighted. I'm going to meet with Highland Ditch on the process and cost, potential. Maybe I'll ask what previous others have looked like.
Bring back on the liquor authority, yeah, be able to.
The liquor authority.
Approve
Yeah, we're gonna talk to
special event permits.
Yeah, and utility staff, we're gonna ask them if it's possible to do the comparisons on the bill. And we have a staff right now who I think will really find that challenging and hopefully can figure out a way to do that.
We actually have like part of one already right now where it's, like you can kind of give people an idea if they have a family of 5, what the average of the town, averages, some averages are. So I don't think that would be.
Right, I think right now it's
hugely
possible to
difficult.
grab national averages, but I think the idea was to see if the technology would support local.
Yeah, because what we get at is fairly local, so I mean, I don't know that that will be that hard to do. We'll see.
Great. Just
And then-
talk to Toby.
We should probably, I think on my notes was a follow-up with Gary on trying to schedule a joint meeting, probably. A little timing on that, should we, sooner than later?
This board only has one more meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wait probably until. the
Okay,
next board.
should we wait till school's out or any of that, or sooner than later?
I think we want to be having conversations before they get too far down the road.
Okay.
So I would say sometime maybe I would do before school gets out, because as soon as school gets out, everybody takes
Okay.
off. So maybe early May.
Mid-May.
Somewhere in there.
Okay.
Where did we end up with sharing the comments from the population with the county?
Oh, he didn't respond to that, other than, we can direct them to their
There's a
site.
page. Yeah,
There's a page. that-
I have often said, feel free to communicate with both. I think I guess what I was hopefully trying to convey is that I would rather, I think we need to hear these things. And ultimately, what I heard from him was that we will have a decision-making point at some point. At some point when we feel like we're ready to take an official position, that we'll do that as a board. And I think that still means, I think we want to be the primary recipients of comments until, I think it doesn't hurt to share them with the county as well. But I just think they're going into a much bigger pool of comments that they're hearing from all over, so, which is fine.
Yeah, I guess my question was very simple. In terms of, were we going to forward?
Oh, are we forwarding the comments?
Yeah,
I'm not forwarding the comments currently. I think it's really us to interpret
Okay,
what
well,
we think the
I'd like
majority
for us
is.
to maybe just give them a reply and say, hey, it would be really useful if you
Sure,
could also
you could
post this
also-
here.
and I have been
give
doing
them a
that
link.
for
Yeah.
people one-on-one
Okay,
sometimes.
all right,
so.
yeah, awesome.
Some of the written ones lately, I haven't put that in the reply, but I've been following up with them in person and having some conversations, so.
I think the other largest action item we need to take is getting an electrician in to see if there's a short in the wires.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe buy a few cords for
know.
like projector,
That cord.
so we don't have to.
Yes.
I wasn't even moving my feet.
I wanted to give you
That's
a
fine
to
about
kick
that,
it.
Say it was you.
I do
think
have
that's
a question for you, just kind of understanding next steps for this board with Summit. Are there any agreements or any action items we're anticipating?
We have a draft MOA. Allison O'Kelly has, we revised based on some input I received from Allison right before this board approved it. And so I think, Victoria, if you and Paul want to take a quick look at it, make sure that there's nothing else you have that you want to add. It's all ready to be sent to Rusty. I exchanged information with him that night and said I would be sending it to him as once we had those ready to go. So we just need staff to kind of bless it, see if there's anything else. And then the negotiations start, and they have to happen pretty quickly.
So has there been any update on the review of the rezoning issue?
I have asked, I reviewed those, I got the documents Thursday afternoon, I've reviewed all of those, I still have some questions. Right now, without additional documentation, I don't see anything that's gonna overturn the ordinance of the zoning map in 2009, but there's a lot of things I still need to look at to confirm that initial preliminary.
Will we know that before the next meeting?
Oh, yes, that's a priority
Yeah,
for both of us.
I emailed you today
Yeah,
on
I
sort of
just
what
got
it
the
is I
list
need
of
to look
questions.
at, and, you know, we're looking closely.
Okay. All right.
Would you like me to give an overview?
I think you should, actually, because, I mean, I don't think we want to, you
Yeah.
know, I wasn't sure if you were prepared for that, so I didn't want to.
I can give a brief overview. There was a question after the Summit contract, or after you selected Summit to move forward, about what are the next steps to rezone the parcel, because on our zoning map, it's identified as an R1. But in talking with the owner of the property, he said, no, we have an agreement with the town that the multifamily units hold on all of the tracks within all the filings, despite the map being updated, because the town wanted to see a more planned pattern of development for this area moving forward. And so we went back, we found the 1977 agreement, 79 agreement.
Well, the agreement, I mean, it was more like a letter.
Letter.
Yeah, a letter from the owners of the property saying we have no objection to.
That's the town planner wrote that. That's the town planner.
No, it was in response to a letter from the town planner in September 6th of 1979, saying
So-
we have no objection so long as those things are maintained. But I see no documentation of that being maintained, but I have to look at the regulations that were in place at that time. If R1 actually, there's a mention in a letter that R1 permits in a PRD, a planned residential development, multifamily housing. But I don't know what that opinion is based, so I want to look at the zoning regulations that are in place at that time. And I'm not sure, I don't have the complete text of the ordinance that approved that PRD. So, but in there, I don't see a specific reference to the conditions of reserving multifamily housing. So I'm still digging.
So then in the filings, the subdivision improvement agreements, all the way through 2015, it states that tract A shall be eligible for multifamily, and
SIAs, yeah.
and that it should, if it is used as such, that this is how the water dedication will be treated. So it just came across from the owner that he said to me, I don't believe this needs rezoned, and this is why. So we've been pulling out the documents. Again, this all happened last week. pulled out the documents, we tried to get them in chronological order, and the attorneys are reviewing them. So if the owner is correct, he doesn't believe it needs rezoned, that we can just move forward. If the adoption of the map, which was adopted in 2009, and is an ordinance of about 3/4 of a page.
Wait, and and there's a map attached to it, and I don't have that attachment.
That's-
There's several exhibits that are, so that's what I asked for. I need to look at
If
everything.
that map adoption just would blanket, the whole town is now rezoned to this, then it is R1. But the owner uses an example that Lyons Valley Village on that map shows as an R1, and it's an R3. He said, that's why it shows as an R1, but its land use is R3. It's because of this agreement we had with the town. So the attorneys are gonna have to do a review. They know that it's a priority because we need to start the rezoning process if we need to rezone. But we also have about 9 documented errors on that 2009 map. So does the overall adoption of a map supersede actual zoning process?
I'm gonna need clear and convincing evidence to tell me that it doesn't, and I don't have that as of yet, and I would be reluctant to base a decision to proceed or not proceed without adequate evidence in case we had to explain it to a judicial forum.
Well, but I want to challenge that a little bit. So because the map still says, and we haven't changed the map, none of the rezonings that we've done since then are valid?
That's what we're analyzing. I need to look at the complete
I don't
record.
see
I don't
that.
see any agreement that specifically says this shall, regardless of any subsequent ordinance, rezoning, map amendment, anything, stay as R3 or allow,
I mean, all of our rezonings say you can now update the map. I mean, that's when we approve any change in zoning, it basically authorizes us to change the map.
Right.
So you're saying you're looking for something that said we're changing the map to R1?
We
For
found
that
that,
property?
we found that.
Well, the R3, like back in the day, and then if there's anything back in the day before the 2009 ordinance that would trump that 2009 ordinance, which is, I don't know.
So we're
That's why
also
I'm
pulling
looking for
out the process that was used, because Lyons Valley Park was just developed in the, what did we decide, Deb? 90s or 2000? Not that long ago. And apparently there was a similar circumstance with the neighbors saying, we're concerned about this being multifamily and blocking our view of Bone Park. And somehow.
Lyons Valley Village.
Lyons Valley Village, I'm sorry. And that one moved forward without a rezoning. So we're needing to examine materials, and we want to make sure we have it right. So, but because this isn't on the agenda, I don't want to go too far on this, but it certainly is a priority for us to figure it out, because the rezoning process is going to take 60 to 90 days, and that will be how that proceeds will determine whether or not this will be a 9% tax credit application or a 4%. So if the zoning stands as what it previously was, which Mr. Bell says they did for Lyons Valley Village, we will save 60 to 90 days in this application process.
All right, well.
I will look as soon as I get
We
them.
can get started if we need to.
And I'll work on
Well,
this
and
first time, too.
Marcus is in the loop. I am going to be out of town Wednesday through Friday, but he knows this is a priority item too. So that won't halt anything.
All right. All right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Is what I
Is
said.
that
What you
what
said.
time
What time would it have been?
What time is it, Trustee Chairman?
What time would it
Signatures need to be on.
Okay.
Oh, an easy 8 o'clock.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just practicing the use of.